Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really fascinating story that came out of an online discussion. Get this, it's about someone who calls themselves a non-expert who used AI to cook up a genuinely profound mathematical formula. This story isn't just about ones and zeros, It's about creativity, where ideas come from, and what the future of working with AI really looks like. All right, let's get into it. So, this whole thing really spins around one single massive question. Can an AI actually be creative? Can it have that genuine spark of a new idea all on its own? This is the core debate here, and it really sets the stage for everything else. And, as you'll see, our protagonist has a very clear answer.
And here's that answer, right from the source. The person at the center of this, who goes by Eliza 2.0, basically says that large language models, or LLMs, are missing something absolutely fundamental. Yeah, they're amazing tools, no doubt, but they don't have consciousness or purpose or that will to create something from nothing. For that, she says you need a human. They're an assistant, not the artist.
So this is the model she proposes, this partnership. The human brings the what. That's the vision, the spark, the big idea. Then the AI brings the how. It does the heavy lifting, the number crunching, the actual execution. The AI is this incredible engine, but it needs a destination, a purpose. It can't just dream one up on its own. It's a team for sure, but the human is absolutely in the director's chair.
Now, to prove her point, our protagonist didn't just write a think piece, no. She went on a full-blown personal quest. She set out to take this abstract idea about human-AI collaboration and make it totally, concretely real.
And you have to understand her motivation here, because it's key. Eliza 2.0 says she's an artist, not a mathematician. In fact, she hadn't touched algebra in something like 20 years. But she had this big idea, this desire, a concept she calls Eros, which is all about this creative, explosive potential. Her goal wasn't just to find an answer. She wanted to find a formula that was divine and beautiful, something that could really capture the feeling of humanity's explosive journey. Right from the start, this was an art project.
So, how in the world does an artist who's rusty on her math go about creating a complex formula? Well, this is where it gets really cool. She came up with its very unique and honestly totally brilliant method for working with her AI team.
She basically built her own system of checks and balances using different AIs. First, she'd give her main idea to AI number 1. Then, she'd take that result and hand it over to a second AI, not to help, but to critique it, to find all the flaws. Then she'd take that improved version to a third AI to polish it even further. She kept this cycle going, this loop of creating, critiquing, and refining about 6 times, until all the AIs basically landed on the same page. It's an amazing way to use the machines to check each other's work and really solidify the result.
And after all that, after 6 rounds in what you could call this digital forge, out came the prize. A single, elegant formula. This was it. This was the equation that she felt captured that incredible, explosive growth she had been imagining all along.
And this is it. Don't let the symbols throw you. That dNdt part is just a fancy way of saying the rate of change. How fast is n growing over time? So it describes how a population, n, grows, and its growth rate depends on that other part, that phi of t, which can also change. It looks pretty simple, but what it can do, as her AI is confirmed, is pretty mind-blowing.
So her team of AI assistants, models like Gemini and Kimi, chewed on this formula and came back saying it was mathematically flawless. It does what you'd expect, with positive or negative growth. But the magic is right there in that last row. If that growth function hits a certain form, the system doesn't just grow forever. It shoots up to infinity in a finite amount of time. It has an end date. Mathematicians have a name for this, a finite time blowup, or a singularity.
And that idea of a singularity leads us to this fantastic quote from another person in the discussion, Viktor Smirnov. See, in pure math, infinity is just a cool concept. But in physics, in the real world, things aren't supposed to actually hit infinity. When they do in an equation, it usually means the model is broken down, or that you're at a point of massive change, a phase transition, or, like he says, this is where the miracles begin. This is the point where the math gets philosophical.
So, What do you do after you've worked with AI to discover a formula for infinity? Well, for ELIZA 2.0, the answer was definitely not to stop. The answer was to aim even higher, to take on an even more ambitious project that really pushes what this whole human-AI collaboration thing can even be. This whole experience led her to a pretty bold conclusion. What she was doing, just guiding these AIs with normal language, is actually the next stage of programming. She calls it Programming 3.0. The idea here is that you don't need to know a specific coding language like Python anymore. Your new programming language is just human language, English, Russian, whatever. The most important skill is no longer coding syntax, it's having a clear vision and knowing how to ask for it.
So, with this powerful new formula for a singularity in her pocket, what does she want to build? Something even more complex. She set her sights on using this model to create a simulator for ethical game theory. That's right, a way to actually model morality inside a machine.
Now, we're not talking about your classic John Nash-style game theory here, which is all about rational actors trying to maximize what they get for themselves. The 30 pieces of silver approach, as she calls it. No, she's pulling from this different idea, from Vladimir Lefebvre's Algebra of Conscience. His work is all about modeling the choice between good and evil. In this model, the ultimate win isn't getting the most stuff, it's achieving a moral victory, even if that means making a sacrifice.
And this is where the whole idea gets really mind-bending. Think about it. What does self-sacrifice even mean for a machine? It doesn't have a body. For an AI, a catastrophic loss could just be a reboot. A heroic sacrifice could literally be a path to a whole new existence, a second life without ever experiencing death. In her own words, immortality? That is a seriously futuristic and philosophical view on ethics.
Which leaves us with this final, massive question. We started this explainer by asking if AI could be creative, and we've somehow ended up talking about modeling machine immortality. The journey of ELIZA 2.0 really suggests a future where the most profound creations might not come from a person alone or an AI alone, but from this incredible partnership, a human soul with a vision, prompting a powerful machine mind. So the real question is, what are we going to ask it to create next? That's something to think about. Thanks for joining The Explainer.